Most businesses only focus on growing and expanding, and they give little to no attention to their exit strategies until after exit is staring them in the face. Learn here at Boosting Business Value, brought to you by Blue Sky Business Resources. You'll discover how to shape a more durable and saleable business, and how to implement a powerful, well-planned, and rewarding exit. Join Dr. David Gruder and Jason Tazinkowicz as they deliver actionable tips for lower middle market company owners, executives, and their trusted advisors. Find out where your business currently stands, how you can meet your revenue objectives more reliably, and how to grow your venture to the next level, all with a smooth and fruitful exit in mind. Here are your hosts, Dr. David and Jason.
All right. Welcome back to a very special episode of Boosting Business Value, our very first interview episode with my dear friend and an all-around amazing lady, Victoria Garcia. Victoria, it's great to have you on board.
Thank you so much for having me here, Jason. It is a pleasure, so thank you.
I was going to lead you in with an introduction bio, but it sounds so much better coming from you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for asking. Well, once again, thank you, Jason and David, for having me here today. I'm really excited, genuinely, for this conversation.
Me too.
So I am a Colorado native, born in Mexico City, but raised in Colorado, first generation Mexican-American entrepreneur. And I dove into the world of entrepreneurship in 2016, loved it, and have been in that world ever since. I'm also a bilingual leadership and business consulting. So I do a lot of consulting in Spanish for American companies who have Hispanic employees who prefer to receive leadership and business training in Spanish. So then they hire someone like me to do that. And translations, interpretations, and what else do I do? Speaking engagements from time to time. I'm a workshop facilitator. So I am your typical average definition of an entrepreneur. I do a lot of different things and I wouldn't have it any other way.
You're a multipreneur, huh?
I am. Yes.
Now,
proudly.
a couple things that you didn't give yourself enough credit for that I'd like to highlight. One, not only do you do work multilingually, but you actually help with cultural assimilation in the workplace as well, correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So I fully believe that there needs to be heart in what you're doing. And Jason and I previously talked about this during one of our lunch meetings. But so stimulating culture in the workplace to me is so important because that allows people to be involved on a deeper level, not just an intellectual level. So heart-centered leadership is something that I am developing and really value because I realized it was this massive gap in business in general, where there was a lot of intellect present. There was a lot of intelligence presence. There was a lot of very articulate people in the room. But what I noticed was missing was this heart energy. So to me, showing up in the world with an open mind and an open heart became like my philosophy, my way of existing since I would say 2019 moving forward. So when I'm coaching or when I'm leading workshops or events, I lead with that mindset because that to me is what adds that special touch to business.
That's beautiful, articulated as mindset, heart set, and spirit set.
Yes.
And I love that. And so I'm saying that because I want you to know that I'm going to ask you a question now, and you're going to be preaching to the choir with your answer, which is when you bring in the heart set into business, the businesses that you work with, how does that translate into them being able to boost their value?
That's a good question. Okay, I will speak from a client experience I had last year. I worked with this woman for 9 months, and it was very clear that I couldn't just begin with coaching. There were deeper levels there that I needed to explore and she needed to explore. So we both needed to be vulnerable enough to figure out what was going on beneath the surface. And the beneath the surface part can be very scary and can be very intimidating. However, we needed to explore that before we could start doing higher level coaching and the business and leadership stuff. And that came eventually. And so to answer your question, the way that it helped this particular business was as soon as this woman was able to unearth what was happening beneath the surface, then she started showing up basically as the best version of herself and then was able to lead the team that she was leading. She needed to assume that position for herself first. And so that took, I would say, at least 3 months of deep dive work, getting my hands dirty. Herself too, she had to get her hands dirty too. And that's the work that Some people aren't willing to do, and it's okay. But because she chose to do that work, her and the owners were able to see results in their business and the performance of their team as a whole.
Marvelous.
What a great return on a 3-month investment, right?
Well, no, we worked together for 9 months total, but those 3 months, it needed to happen. It preceded the inevitable growth. So yes, it was a great investment.
Fantastic. I love
And
that.
I'm thinking about something that a colleague of mine is fond of saying, which is about going fast, slowly. And what you're really illuminating for me, and I think for our viewers, is that when we're trying to go fast, we're likely to miss necessary pieces and then wonder why the things that we're focusing on aren't bearing the fruit that we were hoping that they would bear. And in your example, you're really describing the necessity of laying the right foundation in order for the more obvious things that go into executive development to actually take hold and bear fruit. And so this kind of heart set foundation and going deeper into not just heart set, but I think you were probably also indirectly talking about limiting beliefs too, that those things need to be unearthed and addressed so that whatever skills development gets to happen can actually bear fruit.
Absolutely. Yep, 100%. I hosted a Money and Wealth seminar back in January of this year for the Hispanic community based on what you just said, David, because I realized that the Hispanic community, Latinas in general, which we have the biggest wage gap, I'm a very big advocate for not only educating and informing Latinas about the wage gap, but okay, great. Now you know about it. What are you going to do about it? So based on what you said, I realized that there still are, unfortunately, many limiting beliefs that are not only holding women back, but especially Latinas, especially women like myself who are first generation. And we weren't raised by parents who knew the ropes in this country. So we had to figure it out on our own. And so I realized, okay, women are not going to achieve financial independence. They're not going to achieve a sense of financial security if there are all these limiting beliefs holding them back in their career. And of course, all this stuff is subconscious. This is the whole getting your hands dirty stuff, is the subconscious has to become conscious in order to have that breakthrough. But ideally, someone needs to guide you through that. It's very difficult to do it by yourself. You can, not to say you can't, but it's just so much easier when someone is there guiding you and navigating that process with you.
There's an old saying that even though we can't do it by ourselves, we have to do it for ourselves. And I think that's what you're speaking to, is that, yes, the work is our own to do. And we can't do all of it without a docent, a guide, a midwife, a facilitator, a catalyst.
Correct.
Yeah. And anytime you're doing any kind of hard work, it's always easier when you have a coach there challenging you to keep going when the going is really difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Challenging you not to cut corners on yourself. So this is great work that translates to just about everything.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, the other thing that I really want to get from you before we start going into the Q&A portion is I'd love for you to talk more about your other business, your cacao business, because this is fascinating. And it's an extension of this heart-centric and holistic approach that you have to everything else. But please tell us about that a little bit.
Oh, goodness. Okay, this is a fun story. So I went to Costa Rica back in 2019. I was going through like a quarter life crisis in a nutshell. And so I went to Costa Rica on a 2-week sabbatical. I went on my own. And that 2-week trip completely changed my life. And I would say was the birth of my now business, Apapacho Cacao, which I will get into that in just a moment. So in Costa Rica, in this eco village I stayed at, they were only serving healthy, organic, vegan meals. That's all they served. And so I went to the cafe, I guess, in the center of the eco village. And I noticed that I was about to order, I don't know, something healthy, like a smoothie bowl or turmeric shot, something like that. And I noticed that on the menu, it said cacao shot. I immediately thought, I'm like, cacao, isn't that chocolate? I'm like, but wait, why are they serving candy in the rainforest? Like, why are they serving candy in like a really healthy place like this? This doesn't make sense. So just out of sheer curiosity, because I'm someone who loves going down the paths least traveled, I was like, well, now I want to order this. I want to see what this is. So I ordered it and they served it to me chilled. It was just blended cacao paste, cacao butter, I think cayenne dates, coconut water, and some other ingredient. So they blended it up, served it to me chilled. I drank it within, I would say 7 to 10 minutes max. I felt really euphoric. I felt like, I like to say, blissed out. So I went back to the woman who prepared my cacao shot and I was like, what did you put in here? This is chocolate, but I've never felt this way before. What's happening to me? What'd you do? And she's like, oh, no, that's just cacao. She's like, cacao. And then she started talking about the, I guess, health benefits in addition to like more of the esoteric spiritual benefits of cacao. I had no idea that cacao is considered, I mean, I know now, but I didn't know it at the time, that cacao is considered a plant medicine, a powerful heart opener. So just energetically, it immediately connected with my energy as a person. And so, I mean, after that day, I went back to this place called Wild Treats. I went back to Wild Treats every single day and ordered another cacao shot naturally so that I could continue experiencing this magic. So I come back to Colorado. I told my husband all about this magical cacao drink I had in the rainforest. And I was like, can you please help me recreate this? Because I want to continue drinking this in Colorado. So we went to all the health food stores you could possibly imagine, Whole Foods, Vitamin Cottage, Trader Joe's, all the places to purchase whatever cacao products they had on their shelves, which honestly wasn't that many. And we couldn't quite recreate it. So finally, after months of experimenting during the pandemic, because we had all this extra time, we finally figured it out. And in May of 2021 is when we launched our 3 cacao elixirs. So that's basically how Apapacho Cacao came to be. The 3 cacao elixirs are meant to be a healthy alternative to drinking chocolate. So obviously, drinking chocolate is not something super common here in the United States. I'm from Mexico. We drink chocolate caliente all the time. There are places called churrerias where they serve churros and chocolate caliente. It's something I drank my whole life. However, here in the US, we prefer to eat chocolate bars. So that is going to be one of our product line expansions eventually. Let me go back to May of 2021. So we had a formal launch party here in Colorado. And then ever since then, it's just been so well received. This product that I was very nervous about launching because it's just so out there and it's so different. And drinking chocolate is something that people associate with the holidays, or they associate with skiing in Vail. They don't associate it with having your cup of cacao every day. But as I started educating people on the benefits, mostly the heart-opening, heart-healing benefits of cacao, it was kind of this situation of don't take my word for it, drink it, experience it for yourself. And then, yes, eventually the product started selling itself because people started experiencing those powerful benefits and they were able then to show up in their lives as a more full version of themselves, as opposed to showing up 50% of who you are.
I love that story. Nice. And I love the company. For our listeners, if you didn't catch the spelling of that name, we will have it in the transcript and we'll get a link for you as well.
Thank you.
All right. So great to hear all of that. And for the audience, I will tell you that I've been blessed to know Victoria for several years now. And I do not ever walk away from an experience with Victoria having not learned something and grown as a person. So just so excited to be with you on this podcast. Now, when we were talking about planning this podcast, there were 2 topics that you were really interested in talking about. And so we're going to kick off into those now, the meat of our conversation. And Dr. Gruder, what would you start us off?
I would love to. I'm not sure which of those questions that you had in mind, but if I get it wrong, I'll
take the other one.
Yeah. So I already started down the path of one of the questions, which is really wanting to know more about the things that you have observed prevent people from being able to function in their executive roles in businesses in a way that boosts the business's value. Now, you told a wonderful story about that toward the beginning of this episode, and that had to do with really laying the necessary foundation in terms of feeling set and clearing away limiting beliefs and things along those lines. What other things have you noticed are important for executives to be aware of that they need to be working on in themselves, or they need to be working on in their business's culture in order to boost their business's value?
Yeah, gosh, so many different things. But the first thing that came to mind was leadership. Truthfully, I didn't dive into the world of leadership until I believe it was 2018 when I was nominated to be a part of a leadership program here in Colorado. And to be completely honest, I didn't understand why. Why am I investing my time? Why should I care? Why should anyone care? How is this going to help me as a person? So I sat through I believe it was 12 weeks of this leadership program. And at the end, I was like, oh my gosh, why aren't we taught this in high school, elementary school? This is incredible, because when you are able to remove yourself from just thinking of how is this going to help me? and you're able to be like, how can I help and serve others by helping them extract their best version, which was in a nutshell, what I learned that leadership is identifying the strengths in other people and then helping them to see their strengths and extracting the strengths out of them. And then, if you're an owner, then being very strategic about where you put these people within your business so that the business as a whole can thrive. But you need to be able to take a step back and almost take a step out of yourself in order for you then to see who is around me and how can I extract the best out of them. So after I finished however many weeks of this leadership program, then I understood the purpose of leadership. Then I understood, wow, every executive, every person, entrepreneur or not, needs to invest time into learning the value of leadership and then implementing it and then observing the results. Because if you just learn it, but you don't implement it, then it doesn't help anyone. So leadership was one of the first things that came to mind. And it's something that I often notice, unfortunately, in the Hispanic community, certainly the Hispanic community that is in service-oriented positions, it's sometimes difficult to see past survival, meaning like see past the desire to just survive and just get by and just pay bills. And so it's almost like helping people move past that state so that then they can enter the thrive state. And it is in the thrive state that you're able to support and facilitate the development of the people around you.
That's a great distinction between being in a survival state and being in a thrival state. The skill sets and the habits that are necessary for survival are not the ones that are necessary for thrival.
Correct.
So that's good.
Yeah, and the mental energy that it takes to survive really hinders your critical thinking capabilities as well.
Absolutely. You can't really even learn if you're in a survival state because you're just thinking of fulfilling your basic necessities or fulfilling the basic necessities of the people that are under your care. So when you're able to rise above or move beyond that state, then you can make, you're right, Jason, then you can make room in your mind to learn. And leadership is something I think everyone needs to learn.
Just to tie this in with what you were saying earlier about heart set, this is also another key distinguisher between survival mode and thrival mode, because when we're in survival mode, we have to hide our heart.
That's so true.
That's part of surviving, and it's not part of thriving.
Yes. And it's interesting that you said that because a lot of conversations that go on, part of many Hispanic business professional groups, and a conversation that is often had is how so many Hispanics felt the need to hide their Hispanic heart to, increase their odds of being successful in the workforce or increase their odds of being accepted as a whole because they felt they needed to assimilate and integrate. And now women or men who are Hispanic are starting to say, wait, no, I don't need to hide my Hispanic heart anymore. In fact, I'm super proud of it and I am happy to share it with the world. There's nothing threatening about showing up exactly as I am.
Corazón matters.
Corazón matters a lot.
Beautiful. I love that. And it does take us into the next step of your growth journey, because once you got through that leadership program and you started being in thrival mode yourself, then you got really busy, right? Your life is blowing up. So the next thing, talk about the next piece of that journey for you and your lessons in navigation.
Okay. Yes, you're right. As soon as I made the decision to show up as my full self, open mind, open heart. Then I had the courage to launch Apapacho Cacao. Then I had the courage to show up authentically. And yes, like Jason said, I had this wave of support, not only for Apapacho, but a lot of speaking engagements. I noticed that as I was able to show up with an open heart, it was just much easier to speak from a place of having an open heart. And then opportunities to facilitate workshops started popping up and the consulting opportunity fell into my lap. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I mean, momentum is this beautiful energy that as soon as you create it, it's up to you to keep it going. And that's why as soon as I discovered, the secret sauce to business and life is to open your heart just as wide as your mind. And I was like, okay, well, I'm never going back to having a closed heart. This is great.
You remind me of a book, wonderful book by a colleague and friend of mine named Steve Farber called Love is Just Damn Good Business.
It's true. I want that on a t-shirt. I love that. It's so true, though. Us humans, we're very intelligent. We're very sensitive, and we can feel someone's intentions from a mile away. Even through a screen, you can feel someone's intentions. Is this person being genuine? Is this person being authentic or not? And so, yes, love is amazing for business because when you are authentic, that's exactly who people want to do business with. That's exactly who people want on their stages, on their podiums, on their teams, on their boards, on their sales teams. No one wants to do business with someone who comes off as inauthentic.
So, Jason, I think we have to rename our podcast Boosting Business Love.
Yay!
It'll be a whole different logo.
Totally different logo.
I love it. So when your life blew up, when you started getting all these new opportunities and everything, how do you keep yourself sane and how do you keep that momentum going?
Well, to be honest, because we're all about honesty here, some days it's easier than other days. I just, as a busy mom, wife, housewife, all the different hats that I wear, on some days I'm like, I got this, waking up 5 a.m. I got my whole routine down perfectly. And other days it's a hot mess. It just kind of depends. And so when Jason and I met for lunch a few weeks ago, he showed me this really wonderful, it's an Excel sheet, right, Jason, that you created.
Everything I do.
That I loved it. And I told him that one area where I struggle, and it's just me identifying my area of opportunity is in creating this structured plan for myself, because I do notice that there are some weeks where I'm on it and there are other weeks where I need to take a step back. And so for me, I have this really wonderful planner. I'm just looking at it right now. I've had this planner for multiple years. And I think this is my 4th or 5th year investing in this planner. It's like $55, but I love it. And I love it because it's similar to Jason's very thorough Excel sheet, but it's also very pretty. It's very feminine. And I'm very feminine person. And at the beginning, I buy a 1-year planner. And at the beginning of the planner, there's 20 pages, I think, dedicated to crafting out not just your year vision, but your life vision. And every single year, I usually do that either at the end of December, beginning of January, and taking the 3, 4, 5 days that it takes for me to fill out all those pages really gives me guidance and focus for my year. It allows me to be like, okay, what activities truly matter to me? I think being able to decide what you want is a skill set that a lot of people don't have. And so when you're able to figure out what decisions you want to make in your personal life and your business life, then you're able to create a roadmap before the year starts. So having this planner for me has been great.
I love that. Yep. Nice. I do the same thing. Mine is in Excel because I'm a boy and it's not
I'm a boy.
But it works. But yeah, every year at the end of the year, I sit down, I review my annual strategic plan and update it for the coming year. And I do a 10, 3, and 1 year plan and then work on the quarters. So that's great advice. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whatever works for you, Jason, you love Excel sheets. I love pretty planners. It doesn't matter. The point is that we have a system that works for us. And it's one of those, don't fix what isn't broke. If it works for you, keep it going for as long as you can.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think we should shift gears a little bit here because one of the hats that you wear, you mentioned you work with the Latino community, mentoring them on wealth creation and moving their businesses from that survival stage to the thrival stage. And one of the things that is important to you is capital, right? So let's talk about, you had mentioned a question to me, is it even possible to raise capital without acquiring debt? And so I'd love to get your thoughts on the whole capital situation, what you're seeing out there. And then we can talk about some of those other options.
Yeah. So finance, debt, money, those are hot topics in general. And I think especially now for women and women of color, because they were topics that weren't explored forever and ever. So now that they are beginning to be explored, there's a lot of interest. What I've observed is the Hispanic community, myself included, we're very resilient. We come from very resilient backgrounds and we don't mind getting our hands dirty. I'm cautious with the term hardworking or working hard because there's this desire to change that narrative because we're not mules and we're not horses. Although we do have the capacity to work very hard. I think what's more important to note is that we have the capacity to be very resilient and we have the capacity to work in a very intelligent and strategic manner, utilizing the resources that we have at our disposal. And we're a very resourceful community. We lean heavily on one another. And so when it comes to money, usually what ends up happening, and it's what happened with me, is we bootstrap our entire way through, where the Hispanic community is often averse to acquiring debt. I've noticed my aversion to acquiring debt as well. That's how my father raised me. He was someone who paid off everything all the time, never liked having debt. My father was a pilot for United Airlines. And although he was very organized with his finances, he never taught me anything about it. Because again, coming from a traditional Mexican background, men are the ones, at least in the Mexican culture, I can't speak for all the cultures, but at least in the Mexican culture, men are the ones who are assumed to take reins or take hold of the finances, and women, it's just kind of like we can just wash our hands and be like, oh no, my husband takes care of that. So I think because of my dad being raised in Mexico, he didn't think to teach me, but I would observe from behind the scenes what he would do. And I noticed that he never took out any loans of any type, and he paid everything off. So when I launched my business, I think it was $5,500 set aside from doing marketing consulting work. And that money is what I used to launch Apapacho. And it's just, as most entrepreneurs do, as I make money, I kind of reinvest it back into the business. I make it, reinvest it, make it, reinvest it. And I'm like, I'm coming up on my second year running Apapacho, and so that's why I asked Jason that question. I was like, man, sometimes I get frustrated. Sometimes I want to do all these things, and I see the vision for where Apapacho has the potential to go. And I have all these ideas for product lines, but we need capital for those expansions and for the rebrand and all these things. So it just got me thinking, is there another way? Is crowdfunding the answer? Like, what is the best way to help entrepreneurs like myself who are averse to taking out loans? Is the best way crowdfunding? Is there another way? Like, what? I don't know. This is my I don't know zone, which is why I asked Jason.
So the short answer is Bitcoin and NFTs. Just start trading. Totally kidding. We are in a really exciting time for entrepreneurs because there is so much access and there are so many different avenues. You mentioned crowdfunding, which for a lot of product-based companies is not a bad way to go. Because essentially what most crowdfunding sites do is allow people to pre-order. If you can get enough pre-orders, whatever you set as your target capital raise, if you can get enough pre-orders to hit that capital mark, then they release the money to you. So I know you want to jump in, Doctor, but I'm just going to finish my thought.
Go ahead.
And so in a product-centric business, that could be a great way to raise capital without losing equity.
Yes.
But the other side of the coin is remembering that there's value in your ideas. There's value in your intellectual property. There's value in your vision for growth. And so all that value is your equity. And if you're willing to share some of that equity with others, there are a lot of avenues to sell some of that equity, bring on a partner, or bring on silent shareholders to raise the capital as well. Before we expound on that, I'm going to let you talk, Doctor.
I just want to add, for the sake of our viewers and listeners, that there are two varieties of crowdfunding. There is the version of crowdfunding where people are pre-ordering, basically. And then there is a version of crowdfunding that is equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding is regulated by the SEC. The other version of crowdfunding is not regulated in the United States by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So it's important, if you're looking at a crowdfunding approach, it's important to know that there are two very different versions of crowdfunding, and to get good advising on which of those would be your better avenue for your needs, or if there's an even better way of raising the funds that you want to raise than either of those two versions of crowdfunding.
Yeah, and I will say personally, I really don't feel comfortable with the equity crowdfunding. And that's kind of why I left it off my radar. It harkens back to junk bonds and penny stocks. It's a type of trading that, yes, it's SEC regulated, and there are certain cases where it makes good sense. But like Dr. Gruder said, if you're going to go that route, have good representation. Make sure you're doing all your homework, because what you're going to end up with is a multitude of low value shareholders that feel like they have a stake and a voice in your company and could really derail things. If you ever look at businesses that go the IPO route and what happens in the first capital call, in the first earnings call, where all these new shareholders have an opinion about how the company has to run.
Yeah.
Think about that type of pressure on a very small business. So yeah, I shouldn't neglect it out of hand, but that to me is among the scariest ways to raise capital.
Well, I agree. And I've seen that happen as well. And both at the micro and the macro level, where if you do a Reg A crowdsourcing for equity crowdfunding, you're dealing with all of these unsophisticated investors who are wanting to have a voice in the company. But then at the macro level, where you're doing something like an initial public offering, where you move from being a private corporation to a publicly owned corporation, the very thing that made the company succeed can easily get lost. And I will just briefly point out a classic example of that, which was Whole Foods. So Whole Foods built its reputation and its customer loyalty based on an approach to grocery stores that had never been done before. And when Whole Foods made what I believe was the error of going through an IPO, in their case, I'm not making a blanket statement because I think IPOs do make sense for certain companies. But with Whole Foods, since I'm bringing that up because we were talking about cacao and healthy food earlier, when they went public, the shareholders became far more interested in maximizing profits than in staying true to Whole Foods' mission that had built its customer loyalty base in the first place. And Whole Foods, which its nickname was Whole Paycheck because they had higher prices, I renamed after the IPO, I renamed Whole Foods Whole Fraud because they sacrificed the very mission that had made them popular, profitable, and generated huge customer loyalty and employee loyalty. They sacrificed all of that for a single part of the triple bottom line, which was profitability. And they lost their soul and they lost their customer base.
Wow. What do you think causes that desire? Because I can't imagine it's anything else. That desire to lose your soul as a company. Is it literally just money?
It's exactly that. What we're talking about here without naming it is something that has been called in the field of corporate social responsibility, the triple bottom line of profitability. So the TBL, triple bottom line, is profit, people, planet, where you gauge profitability based, of course, on fiscal responsibility and financial profit, because that's what businesses are supposed to do. But you're not any longer generating profit at the expense of your personnel or the people you serve, nor are you generating profit at the expense of social responsibility and planetary well-being. And so insisting on that triple bottom line is the formula for corporate social responsibility and for sustained profitability in a business.
And I think that we can kind of bring this conversation full circle back to it's all a matter of the leadership, right? When a leader creates a business, they are manifesting a vision, right? They have all the passion, all the excitement, all the enthusiasm that it takes to make a dream a reality. As the leadership pool, as there are more voices in that leadership pool, if you're not careful, those extra voices, if they aren't adopting the vision and embracing the passion, then they're diluting the vision. They're having a voice that isn't in line with the passion.
Right.
And so that's a big reason why IPOs are difficult, because people can just buy stock. There's no vetting process. When you're offered on the public market, it doesn't matter. If you have money, you can get a vote in a company.
Yep.
And so there's no threshold of embracing the vision and taking on the passion behind the equity. And so that's always going to be a tricky thing. And that's where, if you're talking about exiting, if you're talking about raising capital, if you're talking about building an executive team, keeping what you started this whole conversation with, keeping an open heart and an open mind, and making sure that you're not just hiring, or you're not hiring just for skills, but for skills that bring the passion with it, and that you're not selling just for money. You're selling part of your business. You need to sell that to somebody that you can trust that will help you move the business forward. And so to kind of round out this conversation about raising capital without raising debt, there are a lot of different options. We've talked about a couple of them, but even if you're going to sell equity, there are different ways to sell equity. My favorite for early companies are convertible notes. Convertible note is like a bond that can be turned into stock. And so either they give you the money and you give them the promise that at the end of a term, either you pay back a set amount, what they gave you plus a set well-defined interest, or during the course of them carrying that note, they can turn it into stock. And depending on how long they wait, there are separate thresholds that are defined in this project. But depending on how long they wait to convert it into stock will determine how much stock they get, because you're using that money the whole time to build the value of the equity and the business. And so I really like that mechanism because it puts the lender and the owner on equal risk footing. And it's not a guarantee that you're giving away all of your equity. Because when you start out and you need money, your equity is less valuable when you need the most money. And so you could be without a really good strategic capital raising plan, you could be in a position very quickly where all of a sudden you lost control of your business because the money that you needed cost more than 50% of your company's value. And so those are things that we don't want to see happen either. Ideally, I like to see business owners sequestering 10 to 20% of their equity value to sell, but selling in measured doses along the growth stage so that they're only bringing in money when they need it, but they're also selling as little of their equity as possible. And so those are things where having a good advisor, having a good team, and creating a thoughtful plan before going out and trying to raise the money is going to be your best protection.
I love that. Thank you, Jason, for explaining that. Listening to you speak reminded me of when I started watching some Shark Tank episodes with my family, just so that I could familiarize myself with terms and familiarize myself with questions. As I've been participating in some pitch competitions, both in person and online, and I've won 2 of them. And so it's good because I'm getting my feet wet. The stakes are low. They're not super high. I did win money in one of the pitch competitions, but I'm learning, what does it mean to give away a chunk of your business? How do you do that? What are the risks? I mean, all these questions that I just didn't know. And I'm just kind of, again, like your average entrepreneur, just like learning as I go, learning as I grow too. Like as the business grows, I'm growing alongside with it. So everything you said completely makes sense. Jason, can you repeat the name of that? It was bond something?
Right. It's a type of private placement memo, a PPM, and it's specifically a PPM in the form of a convertible note.
Convertible note. That's what it was. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the only other caution that I would give is there's last I heard, $1.3 trillion in venture capital and early stage investment money right now looking to be put to work. So there's access to capital like we've never seen in the history of the world. With that type of money comes bad actors, moral hazard, and many threats. So the one caution that I will always give is this is a great time to start a business. This is an extraordinary time to seek capital, but have good counsel, have good guidance, and make sure that you're protected from, not everybody is a bad actor. There are a lot of really amazing investors that just want to see businesses thrive.
And there are also really well-intended investors who think they know more than they do.
Yes. So build a good team, create a good plan, and then work that plan so that you're protected every step of the way.
And so for new or newish entrepreneurs like myself, how do we distinguish? How do we know who are the, Jason, you're like, this is where Blue Sky comes in.
That is one of the things that Blue Sky is specially skilled at. But the most important thing is make sure that these people are licensed with FINRA. Because at least if your advisor is licensed and registered through FINRA, then they've taken a really rigorous set of courses and extremely detailed examinations to ensure that they know the ins and outs of the law. I spent hours and hours studying SEC law, all of the legal structure around proper trading of equity and stocks.
And what I would add is definitely FINRA and someone with that FINRA certification who is also very well versed in the triple bottom line of profitability.
That's a great point, David, because there are a lot of very skilled capital raising representatives who are there strictly to bring you money. they will get you money, but that is where their focus is. If you're going to have somebody like that, make sure that there's somebody next to them that is protecting your passion and that is protecting the other elements of the triple bottom line. So either find a team that can do that all in-house, or make sure that there's the go-get-it capital raiser and the ethical Jiminy Cricket that keeps you focused on what really matters.
And that's why I love dancing with Jason, because Jason's got all of that FINRA background that I have some of, but not at a certified level. And I get to be the Jiminy Cricket.
Love it. What a wonderful team.
We are definitely blessed. And I'm going to tell you, Victoria, we could talk all day long. I love spending time with you. I'm always learning something, but it is getting a little bit long. So I think let's wrap this up. And I think the way that we should wrap this up is let's start with you and let's get the key takeaway. What are you going to take from this conversation and share with your community?
Oh man, there was a lot of key takeaways. I would say what I would share with my community is find a team or group of people, or even one person who genuinely truly cares and can advise you from a place of earned knowledge. I'm both of you. I've learned so much in this 1 hour that I didn't know prior to us being on this call together. So being able to find people who are just as invested in your growth as you are in your own, I think is crucial. It's fundamental. It's a gift for anyone in my community who is looking for mentorship, is looking for help, is looking for people who are going to advocate for them and advocate for their dreams too. So I learned the term convertible note, right? I learned the term convertible note. I will do a lot more research on that today. I learned, again, the importance of due diligence, and that you don't just take the first thing that's offered to you, and do your research, and that why it's important. And I also learned that there are wonderful people like yourselves who genuinely care and want to see you win and succeed. So that is a belief that I am walking away with today. So thank you.
All right, David.
Okay. Well, this is a kind of a package of takeaways that all tie to each other. The first is that purpose, passion, alignment is good business if your authentic focus is thrival rather than survival. Love is good business. Resilience is necessary. As a leader, if you leave your heart behind, you leave your people behind. Personnel, customers, and public reputation. Learn the difference between good debt and bad debt, because there is such a thing as good debt, and the difference between good investors and bad investors.
I love it. I love it. Taking a couple notes because I might forget otherwise. But I wanted to point something out that you said when you were talking about the resilience of the Latino community and how you're trying to break away from that idea of hardworking. And you said, we are not mules. We are not horses. We are human beings. I love that. And one of the reasons that it resonates so much with me was because in my last business, when I moved to the Netherlands to start working, I worked like an American. I had the mindset of an American. And my colleagues and my partners would pull me aside frequently, very upset. And they would say, Jason, you must remember, we are not animals. I'm not going to work 13 hours with you just because you feel like you need to put in that kind of day. I have a family. I have things to do. They were extremely productive. They were great people. I loved every minute of living there. But learning that lesson that we are not animals and we need to be respected for our personality, our lives, and who we are. And that ties me back to my big takeaway, which is your concept of heart-centered leadership and the idea that you learn to be a great leader by self-actualizing through supporting others. And I love every single piece of that. And I see that in everything that you do. And it's so heartening and exciting to see that type of authenticness, that type of servant leadership, passion for others, but true, genuine passion and care for yourself as well is making such a tremendous impact in the community around you. And I want to be more like that.
Sweet.
Wow, Jason, that was incredibly kind of you. Thank you so much. Those are beautiful words, and I'm just honored to be here. So thank you so, so much.
And I echo that. I totally echo that. And I'm going to put one sentence PS on a slice of what you were just saying, Jason, about what you learned over in Europe. Equating being an entrepreneur with being a grinder is a mistake. That's a mistaken thought process or belief process that too many entrepreneurs, especially in the United States, end up buying into.
Yes, agreed. The hustle culture doesn't work. It doesn't serve your purpose. It doesn't serve your vision. It doesn't serve your mission. And it just ends up burning you out. And then all that effort, that energy, that heart that you put into birthing this dream business was all for nothing because the hustle culture burnt you out. You need to slowly fan that flame until it turns into a big blaze, but that process is gradual. So I love that you said that. Thanks for the reminder too, David.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. And
it was
on
a
behalf,
pleasure having you, Victoria. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. But on behalf of David and myself, we want to thank you so much for sharing yourself with us and our listeners. We're very excited to have you as listeners comment, provide feedback, thoughts. We will be providing a link to Victoria's company so you can learn more about the amazing cacao that she creates. And we'll look forward to having you subscribe so that you can get more of this fun, juicy content.
Yay. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you, David. It was a pleasure, an honor, and yes, a lot of fun to be on this call with you today. So thank you. My gratitude. Muchas gracias.
Oh, de nada. No hay de qué.
That's all for this episode of Boosting Business Value. May your new learning result in the smoothest and most profitable exit strategy for your business. With the right knowledge and guidance, the sky's the limit to what you can do. Do not miss an episode by subscribing to the show. And if you want to learn where your business currently stands, we also have free key opportunity assessments. Find all of them at blueskyadvisors.net/podcast. Thank you for joining us. See you on the next one.